Hey there, Viber friends. Charisse Nicole of So Hooked on Treasures, and welcome to this tutorial on machine binding with the blind hem foot. It wasn't too long ago that I posted on Instagram a brief clip of my discovery. Now, it's new to me, probably not new to many, but the blind hem foot, and I showed just kind of my short process of machine binding, machine sewing the binding, and then the look of it afterwards and how my corners came out. And oh my goodness, I did not realize that it would have taken off as it had. So I had the wild idea. It's like, hey, how about I just show them my process, how I did it, and give them the little tips and tricks in order to potentially utilize a blind hem foot in their next binding project. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through each of those steps. Like I said, it's not much different than machine sewing binding before. The foot just looks slightly different. And let's go take a look at it now. First, here is a close-up of that foot. You'll see the G there in the center. Again, it's the blind hem or blind hemming foot, same thing. And what's different about this foot is we're used to, as quilters, the 1/4 inch foot that has the guide on the side, far right here. Well, in this case, this black piece is going to be our guide for the binding. You see down here. So when you flip the binding over, it's going to rest right here, and then the edge of the binding will guide along this metal piece, and that gives you that nice straight seam line. For other machines that are not Janome, they have a very similar foot that goes on the machine. It may not be black, but make sure you just look for a blind hem or blind hemming foot. Welcome to my Janome Memory Craft. This is the 9410 QC. I am absolutely falling in love with this machine the more and more I use it. Nonetheless, to get started, one, I have put my G foot already on my machine, so it's set and ready to go. The second thing I'm going to do is adjust my needle position over here on this side. The default needle position is set to 4.5 on this machine. I would imagine for similar memory craft models, it's the same. However, what we want to do for this is adjust the needle slightly to the right. This 4.5 means the needle is in the center of the foot. We want to get a little further to the right in order to make sure that we catch just a tiny bit more of the fabric. What that number is for me is either 4.8 or 4.9. That is what I like. It's just over the edge of the binding fabric, and it catches it just nicely. Now, if you are using a binding that's wider than 2 1/4 inches, definitely play with this number. But with my binding at 2 1/4 inches, this is my golden number. We're ready to get started sewing. My binding is lined up on the black metal piece that's underneath the foot, and I am going to stitch a couple stitches and then back stitch to secure it in place, and then continue forward as I sew the binding to the top of the quilt. As I approach the corner of my stitching, I slow down a little bit. Then I prepare the binding strips to be set and make the mitered corner. I do the side closest to me first, and then I do the right side, and I use tweezers to help fold the fabric over a little bit easier. I have fatter fingers, so the tweezers make it a little bit easier for me to get the nice sharp corners. Then I will slowly stitch towards the edge. If for some reason your foot gets stuck on the binding closest to you, then lift up the foot, fix your binding, and then continue to sew slowly to the corner. Every now and then you don't go quite far enough,
So if you just lift your foot, take one more stitch just to get it just over, then turn it back and you're good to go. This is where you will continue stitching the next side of the binding down to your quilt. Let's have a closer look at that same exact process. I folded over the strip that's closest to me. I use my tweezers to make the nice mitered corner. Oh, one more time. And fold and hold that down. There we go. Now it sticks. Now I'm going to hold that in place with my fingers and then slowly sew to the corner. Now remember, you want to get just one stitch over onto the binding strip that's closest to you. If you need to, you can lift the foot in order to get all the way to the corner if it happens to catch. And then you put it back down and continue to sew as needed. Once you've completed that, you lift the foot, turn your work, get everything nice and in place and neat, and start sewing down the next side. But Sharice, that wasn't close enough. Well, that's okay, because here it is, even closer this time. I've got my handy tweezers to make my miter corner as best as possible with my, what I call fat fingers. I'm going to use my fingers to hold that in place and slowly sew towards the corner. As I approach the corner, I do tend to slow down, and sometimes I'll even need my tweezers again just to make sure that it's overlapped properly and nice and neat. Perfection is not my goal, but I do like to make it look as best as possible. Once I get to the corner where I just catch the edge of the side of the binding that was closest to me, I will lift my foot, turn my work, and then get everything neat in order to continue to sew down this next side. Here I am approaching my very last corner, corner number 4. I'm so excited to get to this point, but I am still using the same technique with this corner that I used for all the other ones, and my binding is held nicely in place. Slowly lift the foot, turn, then put the foot down, and I can continue on. I'm finally approaching back to where I started. Once I get there, I will stitch past where I started a couple of stitches, and then I will back stitch and forward stitch again just to secure my binding.
Okay, my friends, I have now completed the top stitching of my binding all the way around my mini quilt here. I'm even going to show you up close what those look like. There's one. Yeah, and there's another. And I'm so excited about how they come out now. Now, are they perfect? No. And I am totally copacetic with not perfect. Now, mind you, it's taken me some years to get there, but I am okay with that. And I just love it. So let's take a look at the back. With 2¼ inch binding strips, this is how close I'm able to get to the original seam line when I first sewed it to the back of the quilt. Now, is it always that way? No, it depends on how accurate you are when you sew the first row of stitching with the binding strips to the back of the quilt. But look at how close it is. And if you're using thread that blends in with your fabric, who is going to really notice? So I'm more than happy with how that looks now and how close that is to my original stitch line. All right, fiber friends, that's it. I hope you are feeling more confident, better equipped in order to be able to hit your next binding project with the ground running with using the blind hem foot. For you Janome fans like myself, that is also called the G-foot. You can look for it that way. It may have already come with your sewing machine model, so double check to make sure. But if it didn't, you can also find it sold separately online. It does come in an option for other brands as well. Just make sure that you check with either a dealer or the specifications in the manual online to see what kind of foot would fit your machine. And they may be called different names. With the Janome and Brother and Singer, I have found that they are called a blind hem or blind hemming foot. So you can look for it that way. It's slightly different for Bernina. So just double check to make sure with your dealer or with the specifications for your machine to make sure it will work. Don't forget, please be sure to drop any questions or comments below. I will be more than happy to answer them and help you out in any way I possibly can. And also, your feedback is invaluable. That way, I know whether or not what I'm providing for you is actually working, or maybe it needs some tweaking. So it only helps me help you. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. That way, anytime a new video tutorial drops, you are notified immediately. Again, thank you so much for sticking around for this tutorial and for stopping by my channel. I hope you check out the other videos and tutorials that are available. You might find them helpful as well for taking your quilting to the next level. Have a good one, fiber friend. I'm sure I'll be seeing you around.